Greetings, everyone. I would like to welcome everyone who will be participating in this special event that we are done together with the DefenseCode. This is the second workshop that we done with DefenseCode. The focus is based on Webstrike, the DAST, the Dynamic Application Security Testing, the advantage, and then the future of the DAST. This will be a special class topic that the Bosko from the DefenseCode will like to present. Of course, the key topic for today, it will also inclusive of the hands-on sections where we will expect you to be really make use of the time to scan, in particular for those who have other tool experience. So you may see about what is the modern offering in the market. At the same time, you pick up based on the specific tool, how the Webstrike is looked and used alike. From the opening, after my opening, then I will passing over to the Bosko. Basically, that he will be talk about, like what I said, the two main topic. He will also review and demo about the processor of how the DAST scan result. It will be drawing form and generate, and then you will have some hands-on with the Webstrike with some the credential that I giving to you in the early of the morning. URL later on Bosko share with you. You're just using the login ID will do. Then we will follow again until we have the proper ending with the Q&A and so on. So let's start on the event. First, I would like to formally introduce, in particular for those that in the past never attend another section on the Thunder Scan, where it's presented by Bosko as well. So Bosko is actually right now in the Europe time zone to share about his experience in the field, and more importantly is to be guided you on how to using the Webstrike, the Dynamic Application Security Testing tool, to be solving for some of the since that your majority is using the tool. So you may see the different the way he's construct the tool, and then the way he present the data. And of course, we look forward also you maybe have something you may want to ask. If you don't want to talk, right, then actually you can just chat question over. I will passing over to Bosko later on. It is the same agenda like the time that you sign up, right? This is a really quick flow from what being covered by today. I will passing now to the Bosko to starting on his Webstrike, the DAST advantage and the future of API security for everyone.
Hello everyone. So today we will be talking about application security on the far right side of continuous integration and continuous deployment, or CI/CD. The major part of today's presentation is going to be a practical demonstration of DAST. So I will use the following couple of slides solely to set the scene and present the advantages of DAST technologies. Everyone, like Vincent said, will also have a chance for hands-on access to a DefenseCode DAST solution, Webstrike. So DefenseCode provides two application security solutions. One is ThunderScan, a static application security testing solution that performs the application source code analysis for security issues. The other is Webstrike, a dynamic application security testing solution, or DAST, that takes a black box approach to testing where source code is not required. An ideal implementation of a secure software development lifecycle would include the use of both, but today we will focus on the advantages of DAST. So what are the advantages? a major advantage of dynamic security testing is accuracy. So unlike static testing through source code analysis, dynamic testing of live applications rarely produces false positive results because it uses a well-tried methods to accurately determine a presence of a vulnerability. So every payload or an attack simulation or an attack probe has precise matching conditions that are expected by the web application or the server response if the vulnerability is present. So for example, take a path traversal or a file disclosure vulnerability. If the payload sent by a DAST tool results in a server responding and revealing contents of a well-known system file, the chances of such a result being a false positive are slim to none, basically. Take cross-site scripting when testing is designed to investigate the context of responses and not just if the payload was reflected or not. It is also very rarely a false positive case. The way a DAST tool such as Webstrike that you will see soon, soon see, the way it presents the results, they are also very easy to reproduce on a live application. You can take the same HTTP request parameters and during testing that the tool would show to you, and you can observe the response for a matched condition that is also shown in the results. So the results are pretty straightforward to reproduce based on either generated reports from the solution or reviewing of the results in the web user interface. Another advantage is a black box approach, meaning the testing does not require any prior knowledge of the application source code, so it doesn't need access to the source code. It doesn't need to know the programming languages or the frameworks the application is developed in. It performs an emulated attack on the live application, just like a real attacker would. So this can involve authenticated and unauthenticated flows against production applications or applications in a staging or development environment. So this testing process can be fully automated on the right side of a development pipeline. For example, you would build and test your application, push it to let's say a staging environment where it would run live, connected to a backend database, etc., and you would run a fully automated scan against the application to check it for security issues before actually deploying the changes to production. DAST testing is also aware of the issues with the application environment. So things like, are you exposing server version information? Are you running outdated servers with known vulnerabilities? Is your TLS configuration secure? Are your certificates up to date? So that kind of, those kind of issues and those kind of security problems are hard to identify, let's say, with SAST solutions, because SAST is only aware of the source code, but it is not aware of the environment where the application is actually deployed. We cannot talk about DAST advantages without pointing disadvantages as well. So one of the DAST disadvantages, and it is a problem that we are also in DefenseCode trying to resolve, is speed of testing. So like a common web application can have many different endpoints. Like if you take something like a news application or user content management application, it can have many endpoints that that can serve different functionalities in the application. Those endpoints can have many different parameters available or exposed, and you need to multiply that with the number of actual attack probes that the DAST solution needs to send out. So every parameter needs to be tested against various vulnerability types, and those vulnerability types have many different payloads to actually try to discover a vulnerability. So because of that nature of tool, the scanning can take a long time depending on the size of the application and the number of endpoints. Now, how can this problem be resolved? One of the approaches that we plan to take in the future is to limit the number of actual payloads that are sent out during testing. And we can do that by actually exposing a configuration parameter that would allow a user to specify the technology stack of the application. For example, if the application is running for example, if it's a Java application running on Apache Tomcat, it has a backend database that is PostgreSQL, for example, or MySQL database. If a DAST tool is aware of that technology stack, it can limit some of the actual payloads that are sent out. So it will not, for example, why would it test for PHP deserialization vulnerabilities, or why would it test for SQL injection with payloads used for MS SQL database if that database is not used, for example. So those kind of additional configurations can limit the number of actual attack probes. Another solution is to actually do selective testing of endpoints. So instead of testing everything at once, you would test specific endpoints, do sort of an incremental testing over time over different endpoints to reduce the actual time it takes to test the whole application. Another disadvantage is coverage. Although, as you'll see, we take certain approaches to ensuring good coverage with modern applications, especially single-page applications, but that coverage is always limited by what an automation can do. Like if you run a DAST scanner against a website, it will run an automated crawler that will try to emulate actions on the applications, capture all the requests sent by the front end to the back end of the application, try to capture all the parameter variations. But there will always be actions that can only be performed by a user. Like, for example, you might have a functionality that can only be reached with intelligent answers or intelligent inputs on the application that automation cannot really do with a default configuration. So how to ensure a complete coverage here? So a DAST tool should provide a way to complement the crawling process by importing requests that are performed by the user manually. So if you have concerns about the coverage, like if you notice that the tool is not covering the application through the crawling process, you would actually import requests related to the application functionality that cannot be done with automation. And I will also show how we cover that in our Webstrike solution. I will switch to the actual DAST solution demo. So what you're seeing right now is the login screen to our Webstrike DAST solution. Once we proceed with the login, we are presented with a dashboard that has a couple of finished scans listed here. The dashboard provides an easy way of scan management in terms of searching through scans, filtering them by date times, risk levels, scan statuses, actual scan names that also show the target URL that was tested. The dashboard also has another view called applications. Applications essentially represent your projects or applications in the organization so that you can have an overview of the entire scan history against a specific application, access to information such as latest scan, delta, how many vulnerabilities have been introduced, how many vulnerabilities have been mitigated, total vulnerabilities over time for the any number of scans that you ran against it, latest statistics in terms of risks, high, medium, low, informational. You also have compliance violations for some of the supported compliance standards. Now, before creating a new scan and showing how the results look like, I will go through some of the administrative and per-user settings just to highlight some of the features. Webstrike is a multi-user environment. You can create new users, you can create user groups, you can assign different roles to users, such as administrator, scan management, group scan management, read-only, group read-only, scan initiation roles. You can create any number of user groups. You can also integrate into LDAP or Active Directory authentication. So you can connect it to Active Directory, map any LDAP attributes to roles or groups in Webstrike, or you can integrate into SAML or OpenID authentication for single sign-on authentication into the solution. So Webstrike will be placed in your organization as a centralized access, and users would log in either through integrated authentication or users created in the Webstrike environment. In per-user settings, we have issue tracking systems. Currently supported are Jira and Azure DevOps. You can submit tickets for individual vulnerabilities, or you can create automated issue submission through what we call triggers. Triggers represent essentially conditions that are evaluated at the end of the scan, such as a number of vulnerabilities, a number of specific risks, or a specific vulnerability type that was found. Once that condition is evaluated at the end of the scan, if it matches, Webstrike will automatically submit a ticket to an issue tracking system with a complete summary of the scan and a complete report attached to that scan. For notification purposes, we currently support Slack and email notifications. You can configure email notifications in the same manner, like through those triggers that we mentioned. The solution can also attach reports in various formats and send them as an attachment to that email notification. Webstrike is fully API enabled. You can create new API tokens for each of the users. That API tokens can be used to authenticate to the API, create scans, generate reports, or perform other supported actions. When creating a new scan, we have a couple of options to go through. Here, the basic options are: do we want to assign a parent application to a scan? So in case we want the scan to be part of a scan history against a specific application, we can assign a parent application there. Do we want to use a specific scan template, like a pre-configured scan that includes all the configuration specific, for example, for a specific application? A scan name, in this case we're going to name it a demo scan. A target website, so this is where you would specify the actual URL of an application that you want to analyze. You can specify individual endpoints here. It doesn't have to be a root domain in this case. So at this point we could start default scan against the application, but I will proceed to advanced options just to highlight all the configurable parameters of a scan. So in crawling a proxy, we can configure the maximum number of links to be crawled. So as you know, an application can have many endpoints, it can have many parameter variations. So this is where you would actually limit the crawling to a specific number of URLs, because the more endpoints are crawled in the application, the longer the scanning is going to take. But also this is used to ensure that the coverage of the scan will capture everything that you want to be captured. The crawling depth in terms of actual endpoints or directories inside the actual dev application can also be configured. The maximum file size that the Webstrike will process. So, for example, if you have some JavaScript files, bundled files that might be a bit longer, but that need to be processed, you would increase this file size, but the default size usually covers most cases. Maximum parameter variations, like I said, applications can have many parameter variations of their values. So this is where you would actually limit those variations, because you don't want the same endpoint to be unnecessarily tested across all the supported or all the possible parameters that can be captured during the crawling process. Threads allow you to speed up the scan by enabling a greater number of scanning threads to be ran. So the more threads you set here, the more requests will be sent by the DAST solution. You can configure timeouts so that the solution is aware what kind of timeouts should it tolerate from the application. Some of the default configuration, like include JavaScript crawling, because the solution uses a headless Chrome or Chromium browser for crawling purposes, it will capture all the modern application behaviors, like single-page applications that perform AJAX requests to backend API endpoints. All of those will be captured automatically, so that you can configure things like custom 404 messages. For example, if an application is returning 200 OK even for endpoints that do not exist, you can configure some of the messages that can help the tool determine what is actually a not found page when doing the crawling portion or the actual testing phase of the testing. You can impersonate any browser, so Webstrike can send a specific user agent header to an application. You can define your own or use some of the ones that are listed here. Webstrike can perform the analysis behind the proxy. So, for example, if you are running it internally, but you're running it against an external application and you need to go through a proxy, or you need to capture the request sent by the Webstrike solution, you can actually run that scan through a proxy. Webstrike also enables you to specify any custom headers that will be sent with every crawling or testing request. So these custom headers can be, again, authentication headers, perhaps, or some headers that you want to add to differentiate between Webstrike requests and the common traffic received by the application. Webstrike also allows you to import requests. Requests are imported in HAR formats. HAR formats are standardized formats that can be exported by any browser. So, for example, we have Mozilla Firefox here, which captures application requests in a network tab. Those requests can be exported as HAR format. Same is supported in Chrome, same is supported in Safari browser. So all modern browsers allow you to export requests as HAR formats. This would actually aid the crawling process. So when we discussed that during the slide portion of the presentation, we said that a proper DAST tool should enable some complementary import of requests to aid the actual crawling process to capture endpoints and application behavior that cannot be captured by automation. So that will be provided by the actual imports here. For authentication purposes, you can perform an authenticated scans in different ways. So you can provide the solution with a cookie of an already logged in session in case you are using cookie-based authentication. In case you are using certificate-based authentication, you can provide it with certificates, passphrases to actually access the application. Basic authentication, username and passwords can be provided. You can also emulate the actual login by specifying login page URL. For example, we will use Webstrike's own login page here to extract the login fields. So Webstrike will capture all the fields on the web page, try to recognize actual username fields such as, okay, username is admin. We would select a password field, in this case DefenseCode. We will tell it what the actual submit button to login is, and what Webstrike will do, it will actually emulate the action of a user to log into an application. So it would send a request for you, capture any return data, such as if the application, for example, Webstrike is using local storage for saving the actual token of the logged in session. So that Webstrike would capture that information from your applications, and that can be then used in actual authenticated scans. Exclusions allow you to exclude any file types from processing during testing. It allows you to exclude any specific paths in the application. You can limit these to specific endpoints, for example, exclude some of the endpoints. Default excluded ones are logouts, so that in case you are performing an authenticated scan, the crawling process or testing process does not log you out of the application and stop the authenticated testing. You can also exclude specific parameters from testing, whether these are query parameters, body parameters, JSON parameters. You can exclude them from the testing phase of the analysis. Vulnerabilities, you can choose to exclude specific vulnerability types or include some of the default disabled vulnerability types. So, for example, if you exclude SQL injection, the tool will not send any SQL injection related requests. So you can limit the actual scope of the test to, let's say, to only high-risk vulnerabilities or medium-risk vulnerabilities, depending on the way you are implementing the solution to check for issues. Some of the vulnerability types, of course, are checked passively during the crawling process, such as software version disclosure, IP address disclosures, information leaks. Anything that can be captured passively is also reported, so not all vulnerability types involve active payloads and active attack probes. Vulnerability test groups, these allow you to configure specific testing methods. For example, you can limit the tests to only test the values in parameters. So, for example, but you can also include testing of cookie values, testing of custom HTTP header values. So all of those can be also included in the testing. You can choose to not brute force hidden files on the application, maybe avoid checking for internal server error messages or checking for error messages in general if you don't want to, for example, have a bloated report in case you expect many error messages. Maybe you are scanning a staging application that has a debug turned on and you don't want to see those issues as part of the results. In miscellaneous, we have the option called Ignore Stored Suppressions. As you will soon see, Webstrike provides a way to suppress any vulnerability finding. Maybe it's an accepted risk, maybe it's a false positive in some case, although false positive results are very rare. But once you suppress an issue, you can choose to ignore stored suppressions in future scans over the same application. Here you can also select automatic issue submission triggers. If you have some Jira triggers or email notifications, you can select them when creating a new scan. Now, when a configuration is completed, you can choose to save the scan as a template, make it available to the current user, or make it visible to other groups of users as well, so they can reuse that configurations in future scans over same applications. You can also schedule a scan to run at a specific time or interval, or you can simply hit start and start the scan. The first stage of the scanning is the crawling phase. Crawling phase will try to capture as many URLs as possible. It will report some of the passive issues as well, captured during the crawl process. So we are not going to wait for this scan to complete, because it might take around 7 to 10 minutes to complete against this website. We will let you do that on an online instance of Webstrike that will be provided. But I will open one of the already completed scans just to show how the results look like. So the summary view will show you the total vulnerabilities found, scanning duration, the number of collected URLs, as well as the number of URLs that are actually tested, the request count, or the number of requests sent during the testing phase, We have all the vulnerability types with counts for each vulnerability type here, chart breakdown as well per risk level. If we scroll down further, we can also see violations to various compliance standards. And if we proceed to the details of a scam, we have the tree view here, but we also have a site structure view. Site structure view enables you to actually review the coverage of the crawling process. So in case you want to ensure that all your application endpoints are covered and all the different request variations on those endpoints are covered, that's what the site structure view enables you to do. So here you can see all the endpoints covered on this application. Under each of the endpoints, we can see different parameter variations that are capturing that endpoint. We can see some further directories that were discovered during the crawling. We can review those as well. When you're reviewing the results, all vulnerability types are listed here. By opening any of the individual vulnerability types, we can review what those issues are. So we can see this SQL injection vulnerability finding. We can see URL where the vulnerability was discovered, HTTP method that was used, parameters accepted by the endpoint, what the vulnerable parameter is, how the vulnerability was matched in the response, what was the actual attack probe used in testing, vulnerability description, violations to supported compliance standards for that specific vulnerability type, and general mitigation recommendations or recommendations how to fix a vulnerability with references to external resources. We can also review a complete request and response for this vulnerability, which is especially useful when we need to actually reproduce a finding, so we have a full HTTP request available there. Now, to avoid false positive results, Webstrike will do double and triple checks on some of the vulnerability types. For example, for issues such as timing-based SQL injections, it will not only send a payload and inspect the response, it will actually do a triple check to ensure that the response time it took the server is not caused by some external factors like network connectivity. It ensures that the response time for timing-based SQL injection was actually caused by the payload and not some external factor. For vulnerability types such as cross-site scripting, it would actually look into the context of how the payload was reflected in the response. It will not just check whether the payload was reflected or not. It would look into an HTML context, see if the vulnerability can actually be exploited in that case, and only then report a vulnerability. So there are double and triple checks and context checking to ensure that the false positive rate is very close to zero in such a tool. Where false positives can happen are in modern applications that don't have standard for messages. So things like backup files can be misidentified because the application returns 200 OK responses for everything. In this case, this is a true positive result, but some of the modern applications can result in false positives if you don't configure a scan to recognize custom 404 messages, for example. From here, we can choose to suppress a vulnerability if we want. You can suppress any vulnerability finding. You can specify a reason for suppression, such as an accepted risk. And you can choose to ignore those suppressions in future scans over the same application as shown in scan configuration. You can also choose to submit an issue to one of the supported issue tracking systems. If Jira, for example, is configured, all the projects would be listed here with supported issue types, assignable users, and we can also add additional comments to that ticket. Once a ticket is submitted to Jira, it would look something like this. Allow me to refresh this. So it would contain that vulnerability type, vulnerable URL, what the vulnerable parameter is, what the attack probe is, a comment that you additionally submitted to the ticket. Automated issue submission would contain a complete scan summary, something along the lines of this. This is a Thunderscan alert, but Webstrike alerts work in a similar manner, so it will show all the vulnerability types as a summary of a scan, show the or attach the actual report of a scan as well. When it comes to reports, we have several formats available. So we have HTML, PDF, and parsable reports, which are XML and JSON. HTML reports and PDF reports can be generated in different types, such as DefenseCode default, as well as compliance types. Compliance types would sort out the vulnerabilities under specific articles of those supported standards, such as PCI DSS injection issues would contain all the SQL injections, OS top 10 reports like A1 injection or different articles would also be sorted against as well. If we generate an HTML report for this scan in the DefenseCode default type, we can see how that report looks like. So we have all the vulnerability types present on the first page here. This table also works as a table of contents, so you can click on any specific vulnerability type and it will lead you to the part of the report related to it. You can also review actual scanning statistics in terms of collected URLs, tested URLs, number of vulnerabilities, duration, and created time. We can also review chart breakdown per identified risk, vulnerabilities per OS top 10, which is a default standard that we use in our default report. You can review the entire vulnerability coverage. So in case you excluded any specific vulnerability type, that will be reflected in this report as well. Individual vulnerability findings in the report will contain all the information that we saw in the web user interface, such as vulnerability description, mitigation recommendations, references to external resources, URLs, HTTP methods, parameters, vulnerable parameters, attack probes, response matches, as well as full HTTP requests on the related endpoints. As Webstrike has a rich API that enables you to interact with it and perform all these actions that I performed through the web user interface, all of those can be performed through the actual API. That API is well documented in Webstrike documentation, so you have endpoints for starting scans, configuring them, generating reports, deleting scans, creating applications, and other supportive functionality, a Swagger schema for that, is also exposed. At any point, you can review the actual configuration of a node scan that you ran. You can see what specific configuration you used with it. You can always hit rescan and use the same configuration again if you want to run a new scan against an application. You can review some of the activity information because the scanning engine will output what URL is currently tested, where the vulnerabilities are found, any problems with requests, parameter variations, what has been identified during the crawling process, etc. All of that will be present here. We have a vision of how the actual future of DAST should look like. As you know, in today's day and age, everything DAST related is around web applications, but it's kind of behind the times because everything is moving towards APIs. APIs are everywhere now. So you have mobile applications that are calling backend APIs. You have Internet of Things. You have single-page applications that interact with various endpoints, maybe multiple APIs. Maybe those APIs are communicating with other APIs through microservices or doing some internal API queries. All that API-centric architecture of modern applications and modern technologies is not well covered by today DAST tools on the market. You will not see many tools out there that will enable a user to import a Swagger or an API, open API schema, and automatically determine endpoints, parameters, authentication, everything from that schema by simply importing it. Not many tools allow you to import Postman collections, proxy output from many tools, like if you want to import something like Burp proxy information or Fiddler proxy or other proxies where you capture the actual API requests and real parameters and real data used in those APIs. And not many tools today allow you to import those. And that is the future that we will be addressing in the following few quarters that are upon us with the Webstrike solution. Also, support for modern approach to APIs such as GraphQL. GraphQL is something introduced by Facebook in 2015 that have a single endpoint but multiple parameter variations that are JSON formatted through queries, mutations. A proper DAST tools need to understand GraphQL. It needs to understand how to approach different request types, how to approach introspections, how to approach different configurations and misconfigurations of those endpoints. The modern DAST tool needs to have as much as possible of a coverage of the OWASP API security top 10. So some of those issues cannot be done wholly by automation. They need some user interactions to point the tool to identify specific issues, especially issues related to authorization and authentication. But API security has its own misconfigurations and its own issues that are different than what the traditional approach to web application testing would represent. So we believe that the future of DAST is API-centric, and that is what we will work on in the future. So we want to support every type of API, not only REST APIs, that we're going to support GraphQL APIs, even protocol buffers as well, used in as a Google technology that is also emerging in different microservices. So all of those we want to support. We want to enable easy mobile application testing or the backends of actual mobile applications, because those kind of APIs cannot be crawled, because there's no front end that can be crawled. It is a backend code by an interface that is not crawlable by a headless browser that is used. Like Internet of Things have its own APIs. Everything today has an API that is not always fully crawlable or discoverable. You actually need to import some of the information about the API so that the tool would be aware of that. And that is what we are aiming for the future. Now, I guess, Vincent, you can take over. We can provide you with access to our Webstrike solution to access the actual solution, to interact with it. You will be able to review the results of some of the scans that are already finished here. You will have them listed once you log into the online instance. I just want to let you know, and that you should have in mind, that the DAST scans can take several minutes to complete. So if you start a scan, know that parallel scans are currently not enabled, so other users will have to wait for your scan to complete. So maybe you can use some simple application to analyze, or use some of the examples provided here that will run around 5 minutes, for example, or you can review results, scan configuration, and other configuration parameters that are visible by your provided user role. So feel free to interact with the tool and also ask any questions and anything that needs to be clarified further.
Yeah, I will be continue where the Bosko just mentioned and leftovers. First thing first, okay, what I do, I will share you on the URL link. Actually, in the morning, I already share you separately on one of your own credentials. There is way later on you log in, and then you're using it to continue for your hands-on sections. Seeing that most of y'all have been using those two for quite a long time, I will want you to using the link. Just open the Super tab as a browser, then you're supposed to be able to log into the account without any issue. So I will let you all to log in first. Basically, I think few things you want to explore. One is like just the Bosko mentioned about from create the scan profile, then perform the scan, then to generate the report, and then play around some of the setting and all those things. So I will let you all right now, in case you may also chat in case you have encountered any difficulty or you have any question you want to ask Bosko. I will able to help you to pass over just in case. Yeah, now I will leave it to you all to log in and then play around for those settings and then to perform a scan and then touching around, because anyhow it's a different DAST tool. So the way they do is a bit differently. But all the important settings, like just the beautiful of it, Bosko already showed you as well. At the same time, also, I hope you also capture what the Bosko talk about, the future of DAST is all about the API centric. That one I fully agree, because now most is about the reset off. Everyone on the future, most of the tool is mostly will be done based on the API basis. So that there is all those things that you may look into. At the same time, I will now temporarily pause here for you, so that please play around it. You can either you unmute your mic to talk, or you can just chat in case you have any difficulty. So I leave it to you right now, please, to explore and perform some scanning.
As I can see, scans already running. I wanted to mention one more thing about DAST testing, and that is related to web application firewalls. Web application firewalls can prevent the DAST tool to perform a scan because it will block any common payloads. It will block all those kind of requests and prevent the actual discovery of vulnerabilities. In case you use a Webstrike or any DAST tool in general, internally on your applications, it would be recommended to do scan in a staging environment where a web application firewall would not be present, because that ensures you that vulnerability discovery is not prevented by the web application firewall, because web application firewall might prevent the DAST tool, but it will not prevent a real attacker using different payload variations that can bypass the web application firewall to discover vulnerabilities. So DAST tool will not try to bypass that, but attackers will try to bypass it using variations of those same payloads used by a DAST tool. Just have that in mind, because I can see a scan running that actually has had the web application firewall discovered, I believe.
Maybe the section will be short for a hour section for hands-on. You may not be found it enough, but you already have some really serious thing you want to try on your own place. Like just the Bosko mentioned about, you have a WAF, all those thinking in place, right? Maybe you may need to consider to install it one time within your own environment. Those things, as always, I can able to help you to arrange for POC, no issue. But at this moment, I think what's important is that you can take the Bosko time to, especially you've been using this kind of tool for quite a long time as well. Maybe some of the difficulty, maybe you want to talk about it, or maybe some of the thing and feature you want to looking for, configuration on the scanning, and then how to generate the graphical dashboard that you may use it, especially you talk about is a multi-user environment, right? That you may allow, you want to have create the user for the different user, have a different access to the different back access you may have in mind, right? Feel free to reaching out on those concerns, because I can always have Bosko to use the time to, while you're scanning, you're waiting for the result, so he can demonstrate some of the feature or certain thing you have in mind, so that will make the time more effective. First thing, I will try to positioning well first. Webstrike, it definitely is what we classify is the automated web scanner. That means this kind of a tool is mainly for enterprise that you want to perform for automate and schedule scanning in the different date and time or future days. That you try to automate those scan. In particular, you have a lot of a website you want to scan, that the human time you cannot using for the manual testing, each one using the human time. So this is where the automated scanner come into the picture. And then second thing is because this kind of tool is geared toward the enterprise. There is way the dashboard that just I think you have saw that come into the picture to generate the real-time scanning dashboard report. At the same time, you can generate really kind of the report in the format that depend on your use case that you can using for all those projects. And then thirdly, as an automatic scanning tool, one more thing in Power actually is in the back end for able to integration. Especially now more and more people are looking for jump into the DefenseCode that the tool from the developer to open how they can integrate and using on. So this kind of the tool that to address all those things because it's enterprise class solution. So he will try to making it more manual and result driven interface. So just simply usually most of the thing is a 1 or 2 click. You're already able to generate what you're looking for. Migration. Okay, maybe they're using the different tool. How easily we were able to migrating all those scan, the URL scanning thing, right, from one tool coming into the Webstrike. Maybe I will base on this to you may using it to show them how user-friendly the tool can be do. I think there are a lot of ways to do. Most of them is using some sort of a web scanning tool. Different tool, they do know how to perform the scan. So we were in the scenario that they were migrating over to using the Webstrike, right? So what is a few screenshots that they need to configure to making their job easy to migrating over without too many pain, to be doing one, right? Yeah, this is what the question is: the migration, the tool, from some of the different tools to the Webstrike.
Well, of course, you are not able to migrate the existing results from those tools to Webstrike. But when onboarding Webstrike, I think the usage is quite clear, and if you used other SAST tools, you are familiar with different configuration parameters. Migrating or adopting Webstrike would be a straightforward process. So I think the user interface is designed with simplicity in mind, so you wouldn't have any issues with actually adapting it to those needs. So we had a couple of scans run by the users here. I stopped one of the latest scans here. As I see, it was paused by the user, but I stopped it if we done. But that section I wanted to just review some of the issues. The user that ran this scan, this application, when accessed in the browser, is actually not responding. It's not redirecting properly. It cannot be opened, so Webstrike was not able to actually access it and crawl it because the page isn't redirecting properly. So essentially, the way you would onboard Webstrike would be you would create applications that represent your essentially your websites or internal web applications that you have. Once those are created, you would create scans that are assigned to those applications so that you would have that information and follow the trends of that application until you actually mitigate all the vulnerabilities that you discover over time and when initiating scans against it. So what we would recommend is, of course, a continuous testing with every every change made to the application that can affect its security posture. So scans would be initiated either through an automated process, either you can schedule scans, like we shown in the actual configuration. You could schedule the scans to run periodically, or you can integrate it into pipeline by using the API to actually initiate those scans by issuing a simple request against a specific target using the endpoints shown here. So, are there any questions that I could answer about the tool? I don't know, Vincent, if we reached that stage of today's session where I could maybe answer some Q&A.
So I think just Bosko give a very quick answer to you. Adopting the tool, it is quite straightforward. It is on top of thing here, you must be aware when the time you adopt the Webstrike, it is instantly is a web access solution. That means that the specific user, it can be in a different part of the place or department that from your organization, so that you all access to the single console web access, and then you perform for your scanning, and then you based on your user right access to be managing all those users in one. So that means this is already multi-user ready. That you are spending only once, then you have multi-user ready solution. This is why I say this is always an enterprise solution. In the back end, it is all the data is saved into the database. For some customer, it's always in concern. You need some more robust way to keep the data, right? So this is why that you notice that they have a generate the dashboard, all those thinking. Also, very commonly, people nowadays also try to automate the process, the DAST testing for the secure developer or developer site to be using the API to scan. Then it's completely without log into the console and log in that to scan. The scenario without need to log in, all those different options that they can be used, and then also inclusive of like the DSAP, right? They will integrate with something. How those things, I think there's some of the things that most of them, they now, one way or another, they will be when the mining to be involved in to make sure that the tool is set up ready, because this is where the future, of course the API you're already spending already is where the future as well. So maybe you just share with them some quick demonstration or whatever, how the all those kind of integration that are in place in the back end that make those people into as easy as possible. Okay, they have one question, Bosko. I think you answer this one first. During the scan on the dashboard, what is represented by the percentage of progress? Since they are tied, it reached 40%, and then went back to 50%.
So to answer the question, that is because the application is discovering new URLs and new parameter variations. So it's recalculating the actual progress time, because at the moment it captures, for example, 500 URLs that need to be testing with a specific number of parameters. It estimates a specific progress, but if it encounters additional endpoints or additional parameter variations, it will need to recalculate that progress and then perform it. That is usually what happens during the crawling process, but once the attack phase is in progress, the actual progress will stabilize, because once the attack phase is in progress, we have collected all the URLs that need to be collected, and we can precisely determine the progress of those scans. But before the actual collection is done, the progress will vary based on the discovery at the moment.
I hope that Bosko answered the question. That is basically mean that it still need to depend on the actual scanning time. So the time, the percentage will be adjusted accordingly. I think that we're back to Bosko. We're back to all those automation features. They may making their job easier. I think because mostly most of the people, let's say, always spending in doing testing for a couple of years. They don't want to spend all those time, to manually perform. So although automation can make their job easier and then to be more productive, I will use the word for them. So yeah.
Usually, the major step that needs to be automated is the actual authentication, because most of these applications have users need authenticated access, and it's important to scan the application as authenticated. That process could be automated through options such as extract session data that can emulate those login actions. But also all the configurations like customization of headers, like if your application uses custom headers to pass authorization tokens, those would be saved in actual configuration templates, so you don't have to configure the scans over and over again. You would actually configure your scan configuration once, maybe occasionally refresh the authentication information if it needs to contain different information. But once that is configured, scans can be simply automated. For example, triggering a new scan against an application is a simple matter of hitting trigger new scan, for example, which would run a new scan with all the saved configuration already available. This trigger new scan, from an API perspective, is a simple post request, allow you to simply trigger a new application scan from an API standpoint. So if you would integrate and automate Webstrike scanning, you would script the call to the API in your pipeline and simply trigger a new scan against a live application. This can be done also with webhooks or anything that can invoke a simple post API request to the Webstrike API. Also, another thing that, like we mentioned, to ensure a complete coverage, your configurations should use imported requests if your applications have some functionality that needs to be crawled manually and exported in HAR formats. So those configurations should have imported requests in those HAR formats to ensure that every endpoint that you consider important is covered if it's not captured by the automated crawler phase. The crawler, because it uses a Chromium headless browser, will capture most of the application endpoints, because it will try to click on every control, fill out every form, click on every button. It will actually instrumentalize the browser to perform all those actions as if the user is clicking around the application and browsing through the application. But sometimes, like I said, you cannot capture everything by automation. So if you review the site structure and the coverage and you see endpoints that are not captured, you can aid that by importing additional requests. And again, that can all be automated through the API. You can import requests through the API as well. Any action that can be performed through the web user interface can also be done through the API, because even our web user interface is just a wrapper around our API. Regarding the future of DAST, so I just wanted to point out that Webstrike does already support APIs and web services, but it only supports them through a crawling process. And if the API endpoints and calls to those APIs are discovered during the crawling process, but we are actually working on enabling importing web API specifications such as a Swagger schema or what is called now Open API schema. Different, for example, if you are used to using tools such as burp proxy or other proxies, we would allow you to import results and requests captured by those tools into Webstrike. So that is what we intend to add in the future to our DAST solution. But Webstrike, again, will cover APIs through the crawling process. It does know how to work with REST JSON APIs. It knows how to work with SOAP web services. It knows how to identify and understand the requests and the responses from those kind of applications. But the future is actually not relying on a crawling process, because the crawling is not always available for all types of applications outside of the web spectrum. So you have mobile applications, you have different API-only applications that need to be tested and that testing need to be automated. So that is planned for the future. Vincent, are there any additional questions in the meantime? Did any new question come in?
Okay, they have one question. Reporting. Of course, the tool comes with some reporting feature built in by default already. Is that how difficulty company, big company especially, multinational, they always have their own so-called their own in-house custom-made template or report. Is that possible or not? Maybe let's say it's a custom service or whatever that to make the tool to support those kind of custom report that currently not in the list. I think they will also cover some of the local region. They are in the local languages. There were more people report in to can show some local languages or whatever.
So configuration files within the solution itself. Let me try to maybe open a configuration file. Just 1 second. So information such as vulnerability types like recommendations, vulnerability descriptions are all located in JSON configuration files of the solution. So these can be translated if needed. So the information that is presented to a user can definitely be translated and edited. Also, the template used in the actual HTML report, so the report that you see here, the the color schema, the logo of the report, the structure of the report. These can be edited in the HTML file. So you can edit styling of the report. You can add your own company logo if you want to edit that HTML report template. That is all available in the Webstrike installation itself to actually customize the report to your needs. We are actually adding an option to customize reports when generating them by specifying how you want the report to look like. Maybe have selected the information available there as well, but currently you can edit the report templates in the HTML template provided with the installation.
Yeah, this
I
is
hope
the
that answers the question.
This is the answer for the Bosko about the custom report that is possible in the mean that the Bosko is mentioned. So as well as for the local languages support, just in case this is what needed for your scenario. One more portion is regarding for the Webstrike is a future proof. So maybe the Bosko, you may explain a bit on that area for them, because as you know, most of the enterprise moving from the cloud and private cloud to virtual machine mostly is migrating to the container based, is now or futures. How your tool is, to make sure they are ensured from all those migration, yeah.
Currently, unlike our ThunderScan solution, Webstrike is not currently cross-platform. Webstrike is currently a Windows-only application, but we are moving towards cross-platform. So we have a couple of changes to make to move to cross-platform, which will enable us to have multiple deployment options, including Docker containers within a Linux environment. It will allow us to provide customers with different deployment options. But of course, as a solution designed with a centralized access in mind, the application can actually be deployed in cloud, not only in on-premises environment. Like you can deploy it as we have deployed it for this demo. It can be accessible as a cloud instance as well. You can configure the authentication to it through various methods, so it can be deployed in as long as it is in Windows environment in the current state of the solution. But like I said, in the future, it will be a cross-platform solution, so you will be able to scale up and deploy even Webstrike agents if you need, if you have a need for parallel scanning, because currently you can only scan one application at a time. Because if you initiate a scan and that scan is currently running, and you initiate another scan after that, that new scan will be processed only after the current one finishes. But in the future, you will be able to deploy Webstrike agents that can process that queue, and those agents would be deployable to different virtual machines or Docker containers, so that would enable you to do that. But as it is right now, you can deploy Webstrike on Windows virtual machines or in a cloud environment with Windows instances, or simply on-premise on a dedicated server for the solution.
Yeah, I think that Bosko is all answer all those things. I think you have a very clear to know about the roadmap. I think the one of the things important for most of the enterprise investment is about the roadmap. If you say that the vendor don't have the roadmap in place, don't know what they do, It also help you to have a clear pictures from how the defense code in all those area like the API and then the cross-platform, like all those things that most of people will have in mind. Because the product is always changed, right? Every day from all those minor updates here and there, but they are moving into the direction to be to cater for the enterprise now and for futures. So I think this can be ensured without any thing. Okay, now it's about 4:45 already. So if we don't have any more questions, so that I would like to moving quickly. By the way, just to give you all to ensure, the joint certificate between eSpin and DefenseCode will be sent to you either this week or next week. We depend on how fast we can get it signing back and passed to you. Then you can using it to claim for this 2 hours of your CPD with whatever certification that currently you are doing. And then for those that in case that you are, Vincent, I will need to have more serious look into the tool, into my environment. Can you help to arrange for POC or whatever? Just simply contact us without any issue at all. We will have one quick lucky draw. So that what I do, because I was just using the random name picker. Once that I name the person, so you just unmute the mic, make sure that we know you are here. Right? If the person cannot be picking up, then we were passing it to the second person who can. So it's in the token of the PayPal vouchers, contact the person who are being the lucky draw winner. Chang is there? Chang, is there, right? Yes. So Chang, the gift will be sent to you so that so congratulations. Officer just will contact you for your email address. Then we will send it to you. Congratulations. So
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we will do the proper closing for everyone. I will thank you from your to participate in this event, and then is our continue our pleasure to work with DefenseCode to provide you this kind of very app section workshop that most of the time we don't want to make it like the one-way talk. That's why we want you to really use and then to feel about and experience about the tool. Because for me, all those solutions we're talking is must be you use and then you found it useful to address for your operation requirement, or maybe something you don't know that we will help you to bridging and make sure that it works in your scenarios. I don't know whether from the side for Bosko you have anything want to cover. Yes, and the thing that I passing to you now, you just talk about for the closing for us. Yeah.
No special remarks from me. If you are interested to hear more about the solution or want to try the solution yourself, we can set up an evaluation where you can install Webstrike in your own environment and scan your own applications and check the result.
I will thank you for everyone. Oh, by the way, those things will, like what I say, we will come back to you past this week out is next week. So I will thank you for everyone. It's our pleasure to serving you from this 2 hour time. But in case you have anything halfway or after the event you think about you want to ask, but you not manage to ask during the time, feel free to contact us, right? So we are always here to answer for all your questions in mind. So I will go from here to ending the section for everyone. It's okay. Thank you, everyone. Bye. Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.